Hello, today the online lesson is based on the topic which I guess it will be interesting for you, and especially it will be interesting for the 8th grade students. The whole material is based on some background knowledge and some cultural features. So let me introduce myself. So my name is Shulpan, and as you can see, so Russian spelling is a bit different from the English one, but the meaning is like it means Venus. You know, it's the planet of the Earth and the sister planet, as scientists call it. And actually, I have no idea what is the purpose of calling exactly me by this name. But today, let's see. So, what is the meaning of the name, and how it serves us, and how it helps us in our life, and does it really show our identity? So, actually, what is your name, and what does it mean? And have you ever thought about the meaning of it, and why your parents choose exactly this name to name you? And this question, I came to this question when I had like a conversation between two of my friends. One of them came from Britain and one from China, and they were just talking about their names. And it was very difficult for a Chinese friend to pronounce with exact English pronunciation the name of our friend from England. And he said that this name actually in Chinese it means something, and it was very interesting. And from this time I was interested that when do we actually think about the meaning of the names, and can we identify the person and define him or present him to one or another group? So if we talk about some society features, so we call each other by names, and if we see the Western countries and their habit of doing this, so for example, the Western society, they usually they name they by surnames. So, for example, when we hear the name Blair or Bush, we for sure know that we are talking about the Prime Minister or the President of the United States of America. And if we say just George, maybe there will be some questions who's George is and what is his profession. So, Western societies mostly recognize themselves by calling by surnames. But in China, for example, if you say like Li, Wan or Shan, so it doesn't mean anything, because there will be millions of people having the same surname, and they recognize each other by the names. So there is a difference, and it can show their cultural specific features of any society, for example, Eastern and Western. So, and if we talk, so let's see the examples of Chinese and British surnames. And so we can notice that England, they have a lot of, like in the shops, in every company, there are a lot of Sarahs, Jenny, Tom and Elizabeth, and maybe two of them. And if we talk about Chinese, so there are a lot of surnames named, but mostly they are recognized by name. So why don't they use the first name instead of using the second name? And if we talk about British people exactly, for example, being so we don't have, like, our English language is not a native language for us, and we actually will find some meanings of every word. And when we see some surnames, we can easily recognize the meaning and how it was developed. And for example, so for foreigners, British surnames, they mean something. And if you can see, there are some examples of this. For example, Armstrong, and there are two words, so arms and strong. So, and can be some kind of meaning, and we can recognize a person by this surname. And there is a lot of other names like Barbara, Baker, and Lawson, Skipper. And so the foreigners actually they recognize British by their surnames. So what is in a name? What exactly? And Naming people. So this is like a very interesting topic, and when actually it starts when people started to call themselves by names. And everywhere names mean something, but very often they, due to some events and as time passed, the names actually they lose their meanings, but actually we can tell by the name about the history, maybe events that happened at this period, maybe tradition and culture. And you can agree or not with this, but let's see some examples. So there is just identify some purpose of any name. There are several of them. So one of the important thing is just help us to distinguish us from another person. And some names carry the information. For example, the surname can identify you belonging to one family, clan, generation, inherited, etc. So for example, if you talk about Chinese, generation, which identifies the generation of the bearer of the name, used by some, for example, African cultures. They describe the order in which children came to life. So the first, the second. So we can identify the culture of some countries. The study of the personal name, there is, you will be very interested, but there is a special science that search and identify these names, and it is called onomastic. So it came from Greek word onoma, which means name. And this science, this field, the study, they try to answer to the following question. So what the names mean, the etymology or their origin, how they used in various cultures, so one the same name can be used differently, and why some are chosen by parents and more often than others. So parents choose the appropriate name for their children. So these are the questions that this study is regarded, and they try to compare, the scientists try to compare different cultures and tradition of naming person. So actually when it started. So there is not like exact evidence of when exactly we started to name each other by name, but it certainly was very old. Probably into prehistoric period we can move slightly, and our most ancient written text is mythological. They contain examples of names. If you can open any mythological story, and it will be full of names. Although all cultures use names, and name and customs vary greatly from people to people, and in some cases they are very simple. For example, Indonesia, they use just single name, and on the other hand, they vary a lot of the close to tradition. For example, Chinese, they are very complex names. Sometimes they have a family name, a generation name, and etc. So it takes more than 2 words, 2 names. So through these examples we can say that different cultures can bring us different names, and through names we can identify the different cultures. And let's go back to our country. In Kazakhstan there is also a tradition, and we can easily identify some traditional customs naming people and children. So actually very often the grandfathers, grandmothers, they have the ability, they have the right to name the next generation. They choose the name, and sometimes people like to name a person, to name a child, because of some events that happened recently. For example, there are a lot of children, they were called like Astana or Asiadet because at this period when he was born, this event happened. So people try to identify this person with some special event in his country. And for example, Kazakh people sometimes they prefer to name their children by naming expensive fabrics. For example, zhibek, it is silk, and some plants, and we can find like rose name, it's Raushan in Kazakh, or tulip, or edelweiss. So some beautiful the names that demonstrates the beauty of the nature. So by this we can tell that the Kazakh people, they're very close to the nature, and they appreciate the nature, and even they call their children by some names of fabrics and of flowers. And if we see such names like gold, for example, altın, or silver, kumus, so we can see that Kazakh people, they appreciate some precious metals, and at this time, from the very ancient times, they appreciate the golden metal and silver. So there are some examples of pearl, so marjan came also. So from ancient time, Kazakh people actually know about these metals, and they appreciate for their features. And there is like if parents got a girl, but and they really wished her to have, like they were expecting to have a girl, actually they would like to name her like asel, it means honey, or strawberry, like a kulpanai. So it's so sweet, and they wanted it so much, so it identified their wish of having exactly the girl. And if vice versa, parents would like to have son, so they name like the girl Olbosun, let it be a son, and they are waiting, and they believe that the next child will be a boy, because they ask and name the first child like this, by this name. So we can call like through these names, so we can identify the culture of Kazakh people, that they were real nomads, they were very close to nature, they appreciated everything, and they were somehow, they believed in some saint features, and they very carefully choose a name for their children. And men were meant to deal with the main difficulties of life. That's why parents tried to, so firstly they were, when the son was born, he had to defend his own family, and that's why they wanted him to be a noble people, or a poet, so someone very famous that can bring some fame to his country, to his family. And sometimes when in families where newborns often die, and in order to protect the next generation, they call them like, for example, Ultarak or Lona, or Ulysses, unremarkable. So they try to protect by these names the next generation, and somehow defend him from some unfair death or accidents. So you can see through these names, we can lots of information can be brought out about the Kazakh tradition and about Kazakh people. And there are some facts. So the famous person, our outstanding scientist, one of them, so Shokan Valikhanov, actually his real name was not such, so he was renamed, and but the whole people, and they know him, they know them by Shokan Valikhanov name, and we can recognize him by this. And he was a great grandson of Ablai Khan, but at the very birth he was given another name, and it was Muhammad Hanafiya. And you see that sometimes people would like to be remembered by another name, and they keep in secret their first name. And again, we can say that Kazakh people were very traditional, and they believed, they were religious, and the first name was kept for another world. Like they know that, they believe that when person leaves this world, he will be called by his first name in the heavens, and he will be recognized there. So there will be two names, one for the heavens and one for the earth. And the same happened with the name of our great Kazakh poet Abay Kunanbayev. His name was Ibrahim, and actually his grandmother Zirveya renamed him. And everyone and even not only in Kazakhstan knows him by this name, like a Baykun and Bay. Let's go to Britain, and if we look at the tradition of naming children in Britain, so parents choosing an English name for their child, they really do it because of some meaning. Actually, they just there is mostly choose the name by polyhomony, so it sounds how it sounds really the name, or personality. So they rename, or as a close friend, a close relative, they would like to remember him, and they name the next generation, the next person, by this name. And the first source for names used in Britain and throughout the English-speaking countries world is the Bible. Actually, lots of names were taken from Bible, from these characters, and such names like Adam, Benjamin, David, or Jacob, or Joseph. And some female names like Deborah, Eve, Rebecca, Ruth, Sarah, they were brought from Bible. And if a person just sees this, we can recognize that British country people, they were very religious, and the main religion was Christianity, so they believed in some Bible characters. And there is some interesting facts. So in Britain, the choice of name is very influenced by class. So a boy called Jason or Wayne, and a girl called Sharon or Tracy, they almost certainly from a working class family. So by this name we can identify the classical, social position of this family actually. And if the boy called Charles, Edward, or a girl called Felicity or Harriet, it means that they came from a middle class family. And in other names like Jasper, Ruth, or Rupert, and the girl's name like Camilla, Devin, or Jamie, or Lucinda, they are probably from upper classes. So previously, some centuries ago, by name we can identify a person belonging to some definite social position. So this again shows that there were great difference between classes in the British cultures, and they really choose this in the purpose to identify the position of some definite child. So for some girls and some reasons not boys, one first name is not enough, and they'd like to add another additional name. And here appears names like Anne Marie, or Sally Ann, or Sarah Jane. And as an occasional completion is that since English pronunciation is so irregular, it is possible to have names that pronounce identically but spelled differently. So such as like Brian, and it sounds like it's the same Brian, but you can see there is a spelling is different, I and Y. The same happened with Rachel. We can see that A appeared in one name, and Anne, there is a mute E at the end. Carol, Francis, and Robin. So sometimes British people, that due to their pronunciation or depending to some regional geographical position, they sometimes add sounds that actually identify their geographical position. So if we talk about upper class families, so frequently they give their children 3 first names. It wasn't like actually a rule, but it was a powerful convention that such second and third name, they are family names, and they are of grandparents and close relative. Sometimes children find that they prefer the second name and to the first name, and people try to address them by this name. So so there is examples of having the 3 names, and for example French, they also like to add for boys and to girls some names, for example for 3. In most cases it was done like for some musical purpose, like Jean-Michel Jarre and it was done like for a good pronouncing this name. And there is like a note: if you're introduced to Pierre-Louis Lefray, so be sure not to call him Pierre-Louis and not Pierre. So there is a bit difference, and sometimes people get insulted when they are called them differently, like by not what they used to. And if you talk about Italy, for example, another European country, Italy, there is a gender-specific names. So male names usually end with O, and for example, Augusto, Enrico, but there are some common exceptions. For example, Giuseppe, Salvatore, and female names, they usually end with A. Anna, Bianca, Maria, and there is like specific pronunciation of Italic language. And by law, a child must take the family name of the father unless the identity of the father is unknown. Single Italian mothers, they cannot give their last name to their children. This is like a law of their country, and it's very interesting. And by the not having the surname, it means that the child hasn't got his father. If you talk about Spain or Portugal, the basic rules of naming is that on birth a child is given a first name followed by two surnames of his father and the name of his mother. In Spain, father's name comes first, while in Portugal, mother's name comes first. So, however, there has always been a certain flexibility about these two rules. For example, the Spanish painter Pablo Picasso chose his second surname, and the Spanish actor Antonio Banderas also. So you see there are some specific features of each country, of each culture, and it means that, for example, the father's name is very important in Spain, but not so in Portugal. So again, we can identify people and bring them to one special culture territory. If we talk about German-speaking countries, so there is a strict rule governing and naming children. Actually, parents have no choice from a list of court-approved names. So in order to prevent a child from becoming a victim of ridiculous or confusion. So the name, for example, Hitler and Stalin are banned, for instance, and they won't find them in the list. So a list of names is given to parents, and they choose the appropriate name for their child. In Ireland, there are very strict laws of naming their children, and because of their grammatic and pronunciation rules. So given names shouldn't be used letters which are not in this alphabet, Icelandic alphabet, and that cannot be they cannot be unisex. So it's very strict followed. And Czech names. So, for example, here is some first name and other saints' names. So, and for example, you have some example here. You can see, and the Slavonic names. For example, Debroslav. A whole category of Czech names and Slovak. There is like represent the love and peace, and the Czech verb slavit means to celebrate, and this gives like an opportunity to name their children by Yaroslav, the celebration of spring, Vladislav, the celebration of power. So they add this ending, this suffix, which means to celebrate. Again, when seeing this name, you can actually identify this person belonging to some Czech Republic or Slovenian. And Americas, so for example, each Mother's Day in the United States, the Commission of Social Security publishes they publish the most popular baby names, and this research was based on the Social Security cards application, and from each year. Americans have a wonderful facility to invention of first name. Like they actually make their names. They convert pet names into proper names. For example, Bubba, Bud, Buster. So naming a pet, and then they can name a child by this name. Then they invent new spelling, for example, for Charlotte, and you see like CH changed into SH for appropriate American pronunciation. And the same happens with Catherine, and I changed into Y, and mute E is just changed. And they take surnames, especially of the famous people, and they create like a first name. For example, Wesley, Washington, if you know that it was just the surname of a well-known president, but they sometimes they use it as a first name. So America hasn't got such a tradition or rule of naming babies, but in most cases they just choose for a very good sounding, and it should sound like America and with American pronunciation, and they sometimes they change in order to focus on their spelling and pronunciation. And for example, American men they are, in most cases their name is identical, naming their sons identical to themselves, and the fathers and sons then they can be distinguished by suffixes or formal names, for example, senior, junior. So senior, and they can abbreviation like SR, and for example, junior, JR. So it means that he is the son of his father. So by these suffixes, by these added names, they identify their belonging to one family. And another fact from, for example, from America, for example, the United States Secretary of State, Condoleezza Rice, she derives her first name from the musical term Condoleezza, and to play with sweetness it means, and she organized her own surname like Condoleezza. So and the whole world knows her by this name. Again, we can identify this person to very fascinated about the music. And if we talk about some Arabic names, and for example, the hot and dry weather of the Arabic world, it was a real good inspiration for appearing of series of names, and for as male and female. And for example, rain. The name means rain for a girl, and it means that it is a real great desire of having the rain, or rain clouds, mazin, or dew, nada. So again, we can identify this to some geographical, belong to some geographical position. So people really wanted to have some fresh air, some rain happened. And when a child was born, they actually named him by this, and they believed that the rain or something fresh will appear in their life. And the name of the founder and prophet of Islam, Muhammad, literally praiseworthy. It is a very popular name in the whole Islamic world, actually. And the names from the same root, like Hamida, to praise, includes such names, and here are the examples of Ahmad, Hamid, and Mahmud. So there is some parts of the names that they actually add, and we can identify this person belonging to some Islamic world, to some Islamic country. Again, it says us about the religious country. And Chinese names we were talking about previously, and there is like usually, but not very often, the first name is a two-syllables long, only two. So since every character in the Chinese language can be used as a first name, there is almost endless choice because you know the alphabet, they have lots of characters, and they can add any they wish. Although there is a choice of first name in China, and the most common characters in Chinese first name is Wen, meaning culture, or writing. And this name clearly reflects the ultimate values in modern Chinese society of culture and education. And it shows that they try to have their children be educated and close to their culture and follow the culture of Chinese people. Let's see any other theories. So together with the previous mentioned theory, there are a lot of others. For example, Kabbalian philosophy, it's so-called. So maybe you have heard something about this. So baby name meanings, and so the history of this philosophy. So this philosophy was brought by British Columbia. So it appeared in Canada in 1930s, and here's the dates and the name of Alfred Parker. So Mr. Parker, this doctor, he made an independent discovery of the connection between numbers and symbols of language, and the force of intelligence which comparisons the human mind. And in the course of his life, he pioneered the new understanding in the Western world. So maybe you have heard, so when people try to choose the name to their child, they try to combine or multiply or add the dates of his birth, and this by this number they can put the letters and then create the name for the child appropriate to his date of birth. So any parents and likely have given through naming their newborn, so they can do it after mother, father, or uncle, or anyone. And perhaps some parents have browsed through lots of baby names books. They just see what is worldwide famous names and choose the most popular ones. For example, in Kazakhstan, there we have such names like Елбасы and Байтерек even. This philosophy, it has got 80 years of experience. So mathematically balanced names is a special name. Like I said, so this is a combination of the date of birth of a child. There is a balanced name with a happy baby who will develop an intelligent and reasoning mind with mental depth and stability. So like through mathematical balance, people try to identify the name for their child. A balanced name creates an expressive child, one who is creative, reliable, and capable, who will experience overall good health. So this is like for 80 years, this experiment proves that the date of birth is very important for a child and for a newborn. And some parents really rely on this theory. So business and onomatics. There is also some experiments are done in business. For example, finding the proper name for some company or some product in the world. Again, it's very important to have a good name that will sound and you can easily sell your products. In selling and marketing, onomastic can be used to enrich a customer database with information extracted from names, and because of the economical availability or popularity. So those projects can have significant social impacts and raise various political and economical issues. And they can identify geographical position, can be recognized by communities, identify some religion or some cultural things. Onomastic combined with geodemographical segments can help rapidly build geographical maps, and the scientists can easily identify the territory of any culture and developing of one of them. And there is another interesting fact. So branding, it's again the naming. So where do great brands come from? And there is a lot of different sources like family names, the name of inventors, and for example McDonald's, it's a family name. Adidas, inventor's name Adi Dassler, so he just joined his name and there was appeared a brand like Adidas. And Volvo, it means to roll from Latin, and we still know this name and recognize. And Kodak, so it was actually made up by inventor. And George Eastman, unusual and different it means. So he created this word and we still recognize it, but no one just actually thought about the meaning of this. And there is a lot of other examples like Toyota and Chanel number 5, Rolls-Royce, Nike, and you can see the definition. So Toyota, it's originally Japanese family name, Toyoda, there's like D letter. And the inventors just changed one letter in order just to make the pronunciation easier. And Nivea, it's Snow White, it means. It came from Latin. And if we talk about the mode fragrancy channel number 5, this is like means the 5th perfume made by the same company. And if we talk about Rolls-Royce, it is the family names of 2 men, one of motor enthusiastic and the other engineering genius. So they combined their names and they combined their works, and here appeared a new car, just Rolls-Royce and Reebok and Nike. So you see, there is when we see the name, we can actually identify the person who invented this story, who invented this thing, or some kind of developing or depending to some cultural or geographical position. There's, if you can think about other names and practice it a bit, so I think you can find lots of interesting information about your name and names of your family also. Thank you for your attention.